What's up, humans, and welcome to a new Psicoactivo. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Okay, it's time to talk a little bit about the Tridactyls. Because if you guys know about what happened last Friday, there was a press conference where Mr. Jaime Maussan had a presentation about the Buga sphere. There were people like attorney Danny Sheehan in attendance, Timothy Alberino, who is also a content creator about these topics. He focuses more on ancient civilizations and potential giants, Nephilim, and all that stuff. There was Representative Burleson, and there was also Dr. Stephen Greer, who is one of the most known faces in ufology, who deserves all the credit for that already mythical press conference at the National Press Club, where he had multiple people who had firsthand knowledge and experience, former government employees, who came forward to talk about what they know about UFOs and about many different aspects of ufology. Over the years, if you guys don't know what's been going on, when Lou Elizondo came forward first, Dr. Greer was immediately pointing the finger and saying that he was a disinformation agent, which may or may not be true. But at the same time that he did that, he was also discrediting people from the military, like Commander Fravor or Ryan Graves or anybody who was contrary to what he was trying to put out or his narrative. And that was not the best way to go about that, in my opinion, because you can disagree with stuff that Lou is doing, for example, or others who are working with him. But if you discredit every single person who is not following your own narrative, that speaks a lot more about you than it does about them. And to be honest with you, when I saw Commander Fravor talking about his experience with the Tic Tac, I have no way of knowing how he would be lying because he's a military man, first of all. If you disparage someone from the military, you clearly don't understand the psyche that these men have. Saying that someone from the military is actively and purposely lying about something gives me an idea that you don't really understand how people in the military think, because that's a really, really horrible insult to tell to someone from the military. Most of them make it their life's mission to lead an honorable life, and they fight with the conviction to protect others, not to lie. So that's the problem that I have with Dr. Greer. And there's a bunch of other reasons why I thought that his presence at the press conference was not a good idea. There's even a video of him circulating saying that people in cop uniforms tried to get into the vault where the Buga sphere was kept. But there's a lot of conflicting information going around with that video that he uploaded through filmmaker Michael Masola. There's people who were there, who know about this alleged incident, that don't believe that it happened, that it was just announced as a way to call for more attention to the topic. I don't know if that's the case. I know, and I've spoken to two people who were there, who are known people. One of them tells me that it definitely did happen and that everybody's okay, and they wouldn't give me more details. Mr. Maussan hasn't done any public statements about what allegedly happened. And then the other person that I spoke to, who is a scientist, did tell me that they were really confused about the whole thing because some things didn't add up to what is being said in their circles. This is also the same issue that people like, for example, Ross, Coulthart, Dr. Gary Nolan, other people who have been trying to investigate the mummies properly, the Nazca Tridactyl beings, have had, because whenever they approach the case, they can see that there's a lot of internal conflict going on and a lot of fighting over the credit of the bodies. I can tell you that the person that I think should be credited first for the discovery of these are Mario de Huaquero That's the first one because he's the one who physically discovered the bodies. Then Thierry Jamin and everybody at Inkari Institute, because they were the first group from an institute who attempted to make these bodies more public and investigated them. And the whole repository they have at the alienproject.com, the DICOM images and the tomographies and the x-rays, those are all really compelling still to this day. Then Mr. Maussan was the one who took over the case. And I say took over because that's what he attempted to do. When I spoke to Thierry, he gave me the impression that he felt like he was made aside by Maussan and his team. That's what he told me. And honestly, I don't really like that this is happening. I think everybody should get credit for what they did because, to be honest, if had Maussan not displayed those little bodies at the Mexican Congress, this case wouldn't have the attention it has today. And that credit goes to Jaime. That's the reality of it. And now that Jesse Michaels is involved in this case and investigating it, he's doing an episode on American Alchemy about the mummies. He approached me to ask me who was worthy of being interviewed for his show. And I sent him to the people that I am talking to who are not related to Jaime Maussan in any way, because they're trying to investigate the case without all the noise surrounding Jaime's team. Because although I know that the level of reverence that Jaime has in Latin America, I know that perfectly well. I also know that he is part of a machine that first and foremost has to worry about sponsors, about clients, about airtime, about, like any communication media outlet should do. And especially a massive one like his, because if you guys are not aware, he just opened a channel. He just got a license by the Mexican government to have his own open source channel nationwide. And that requires a lot of money. That requires that license that is nearly impossible to get these days. And he got it. So when he was starting to open the channel, the way channels like that work is that they have commercial spaces to sell advertising in between shows. And whenever they go to a commercial break, these advertisers show their products. So when Jaime was about to launch, there were already major corporations trying to buy airtime from his channel so they could so they could announce their products on his channel. And that is a lot of money involved. So there comes a time when an enterprise as big as this one or a channel as big as this one blurs the line between trying to report actual scientific evidence or trying to stick to the truth, and they start going towards a style of reporting that has more to do with sensationalism. And there are some instances that I've already seen on the channel of some cases and some news that are not necessarily fully in line with what's actually going on. They are sensationalized in many ways. I'm not going to do specific examples of it, but that's the way machineries like this one operate. And people need to be aware of that. So whenever a case like, for example, the Buga sphere comes forward, or even the Tridactyls that fortunately today are now being taken seriously, because I still do consider that the Tridactyls case, the larger bodies are real, according to the data that I've seen so far. So whenever a case like this comes up from a source like that, it's only natural that people question it. The only problem that I have with that is that there's a lot of scientists from Latin America who have been looking at, for example, the Tridactyls and other cases that I think have been dismissed because they're not from the Five Eyes countries. And if you ask me, I'm a Mexican man. UNAM University is one of the most respected universities in Latin America, and I would say the world. And people who are questioning these scientists just because they're associated with Mr. Maussan, I think are making a huge mistake, because that's why I haven't reported on the Buga yet, because I'm just waiting for the final results of the studies to come out, and I will make a decision on reporting on it or not. And I am just giving this like credence to the case, or staying on the fence, because of these academics and scientists. Because I don't know, I just don't think that academics and scientists would lend themselves to be part of a hoax or a lie. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not, but that's why I'm waiting. And that's why people like Ross and Gary Nolan and others waited a little bit. I am glad that now that Jesse Michaels has given attention to it, other people are getting more involved because they asked around. But I am disappointed that we had to wait for the Americans, or the Five Eyes, to look at this seriously in order to give it credence. That is the epistemic injustice that Professor Stephen Brown talked about. And for me, it's a little bit of everything. It's a little bit of epistemic injustice, yes. People who don't consider equally valuable the opinion of Latin American scientists compared to Five Eye countries scientists. That is an epistemic injustice, just because they're not English speaking, or because there is some kind of a language barrier. I think that is happening. But I also think that there's also people that don't even pay attention to that, but they do pay attention to the history of the media outlet that is putting out the content. And if they have a history of cases that have been deemed not real in the past, and if they did multiple times, they did that, I would put it into question as well. So that's the problem that we have. And everything is happening at the same time. It's a little bit of everything. I'm just happy that the mummies are finally being looked at a little bit more. And this just happened last Sunday, and I'm just going to show you. Ross Coulthart was on Reality Check, and he was asked about the Tridactyls, and this is what he responded.
Carl, he sent us an email saying, "Hi team, thanks for your great work on this topic. Can you please give your opinion on the ongoing developments on the Nazca mummies in Peru? I have not heard you speak on this topic. There does appear to be some legitimate research being done on these corpses, including the work of American forensic odontologist Dr. John McDowell. Regards, Carl."
And this is a problem that I'm telling you about. Had Dr. John McDowell not gotten involved in the case, it would be still ignored by people from the Five Eyes. I can guarantee you that. And this is the issue that I have. This is the issue that my friend Gonzalo has. He's a little more abrasive than I am when we're raising this issue, but it is something that happens. And I know that people don't like when they're being called names, or when they're telling them that they're being discriminatory against someone, but it does happen, and it needs to change. You need to learn that a scientist deserves the same amount of respect, regardless of the country they come from or the language they speak. They all go through similar processes to study either medicine or the type of science they decide to study. And I do think it's really unfair that some of them, especially a bunch of scientists from Latin America who have been looking at the mummies for since 2014 at least, have been blatantly ignored. They put their name on this, risking their careers, and they were still ignored and even accused of being part of hoaxes and all this. And I think that's completely unfair. And yeah, I'm happy that Ross is now getting involved in the case, as he's about to tell you guys.
I've had preliminary chats with Dr. John McDowell myself, and I know he's convinced, based on his dental assessments, that these are some potential new hominid that is not human-based, not Homo sapiens. I'm also in touch with people in Mexico who've been involved in doing the research, and I'm also in touch with people in Peru. Suffice to say, you will be hearing more from me on this very shortly.
So Ross is getting fully involved. I'm glad he is. I would just tell him that if you really want to look into this thoroughly, and this is something that Jesse also decided to not do because Dr. Celestino Piotti's theories are pretty out there. I'm not going to lie. But he was at the Mexican hearing saying that based on the cranium measurements he did, he thinks that the smaller bodies and the larger bodies are our descendants from the future. And it's pretty wild. I know. I'm not saying it's true. Honestly, I don't know what to think. I do think that Dr. Piotti's measurements are just that. That's what they tell him. And that's math. You can't argue with math or geometry or craniometry in this case. The thing that I believe that Dr. Piotti hasn't said yet and hasn't reached to that conclusion yet is that it may be possible that before the Younger Dryas impacts happened, there was way more diversity in hominids on Earth than after. It's a possibility. I'm not saying it's completely real or true, but I think that it is possible that we might be dealing with some sort of crypto-terrestrial species that, yeah, they seem more evolved based on Dr. Piotti's measurements, but only because they were already here and they evolved further than this civilization that we're on right now. That's what I think might be happening. Again, based on the data that I've seen so far, that's my working hypothesis. It will inevitably change after I see more data. But for now, that's what I think. And I think that if you want to look into this case properly and thoroughly, you need to look at Dr. Piotti's findings and make them a part of the puzzle, because he is like a complete eminence when it comes to anthropology and craniometry. And he seems really convinced. And if there is someone on his level who also speaks Spanish, who is also an anthropologist, who wants to challenge whatever he's saying, but you have to be on his level, I would make it happen. I would arrange a conversation between you both. And if you have a different opinion, you got to put up your data on the table and express your opinion and challenge whatever Piotti is studying here. I'm more than happy to listen to it. But for now, that's what I think. And I'm happy that Ross is involved. The more eyes, the better. But there is a little injustice there, don't you think? I think we should work all together to change that, I think. But let me know what you think. What do you think about Ross Coulthart getting involved in the mummy's case now officially? What do you think about this apparent injustice? Because people are now paying attention to the case now that people like Ross or Jesse Michaels are more involved, but they weren't before just because they weren't interested. Do you think that's unjust? Let me know in the comments. If you like the content you see, I'm going to ask you to like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. That's all you need to do to help us, and it is what helps us the most. But if you want to support us in any other way, there's a few links down there you can take your pick from. You can also become a member on YouTube, or you can support us through KGRA. Anything you choose to do is always appreciated, so thank you. That's it for me today on this video, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Remember, stay curious and inquisitive like Ross Coulthart. Always. Bye.